Oh yeah.
Cool, cool. All right, sweet. So we are here with, is it Lio Bumba? Bumbakini? Is that how you say
Yes,
it?
Lio Bumba,
Bumba.
also known as Bumbakini.
Cool, cool. Yeah, please introduce yourself. Just tell us anything a little bit about your background, your history. I feel like you have a super cool like family story of how you got into art and all that.
Yeah, my name is Leo. I'm originally from Brussels, Belgium, by way of the Congo DRC. I was born in Brussels, but the whole of my family is from the Congo, Zaire, and how they ended up being in Belgium was because my father uh, was a political refugee. He was exiled for speaking out and publishing works or papers against the government, the current government, which was Mobutu, dictator in the Congo for 30 years. So he was so he left the Congo under refugee status in the early 90s or late 80s. And my mother, she had a different story. She was a art scholar, and she was studying to be a basically she was studying anthropology and art history at the time, and she got a scholarship to study in Belgium at in Leuven to pursue her PhD doctorate in art history and anthropology. So they end up there. I'm born in Brussels in this neighborhood called Matonge, which is a neighborhood that was founded in the early 90s by Congolese immigrants and Rwandan also immigrants that had fled the Rwandan genocide in the East Congo, as well as Congolese from throughout the country at the time because of civil unrest. The dictatorship was going down. There was a change of power. There was also the onset of what the Rwandan genocide spilling over into the Congo caused. So I'm born there in the early 90s, and we lived in Belgium until I was about 9 or 8 years old. And then we moved to the States where I lived in Dayton, Ohio, and lived there for about 5 years, learned English there, kind of like Midwest blue collar America. And we moved there right after 9/11, which is right before 9/11. So early 2001, and then September happened, and then 9/11. So you have like kind of like the start of like, not like it wasn't nationalism back then, but it was definitely like a lot of anti-immigrant um, rhetoric going on because of the terrorism. I mean, mainly aimed at the time at the Middle East and things of that nature. But I mean, I think it felt throughout for anyone that was non-American at the time. But that was an interesting time. That was an interesting time to come to the States and actually be learning English and learning about the culture and learning about things. We moved from there. We moved to Chicago, and the reason we moved to the States again is because my mother was an art creator. She ended up getting offered a job for the Dayton Art Institute, and then later that transitioned into a position at the Chicago Design Museum of African Art. So I lived in Chicago, and living in Chicago was really like an eye-opening kind of experience for me, where I really was enthralled with the city urban landscape of America. Chicago is a massive city, and it's also a very Midwestern city, but also a very international and segregated city at the same time. Because if you go to the South Side, West Side, North Side, kind of each ethnic group has like their own neighborhood and their own thing. And that's kind of like the status quo of Chicago, but the people are very, like, it's very intermixed because you have downtown and like people are like, there's so many cultures there. And that was kind of like really something I think that really opened my eyes to like what is America. And at the time we lived in Hyde Park, and this is back in 2007. No, actually a little earlier than that, like 2006. But this is when Obama is becoming like a political activist in Chicago and doing all this stuff. And it was really interesting because at one point we come home, me and my mother, and there's like a bunch of news media like down the street, and we're like, what's going on? Like, why is there so much news? Like, did somebody get shot or like what happened? And it was Obama moving out of his residency because he had become a senator. So he lived like two buildings down from us in Chicago. And then we moved to Denver, and I've been in Denver since 2008 about, and based out of Boulder since 2011. But Denver has been like just like the street art here. I think if Chicago's my like kind of like my worldly kind of like education of like how the world works and how America really is, I feel like Denver has been kind of a hybrid because in Brussels and Belgium is full of street art. Like it's like everywhere, every crevice of the city is like street art. I think the '90s hip hop happened and hip hop really took off in Belgium, and we have like some of the greatest writers and some of the greatest just like street artists, like artists that were out in the streets doing graffiti because it was illegal. They're not sanctioned to do any of this stuff, but really making like really cool visual aesthetic stuff. And that was like me walking to school every day. I would like run into the stuff. And moving to Denver, it kind of re-enlightened that in a sense because Denver wasn't like that when I moved here in 2008. It was like the start of like crushed walls. It was like the first year of like all of these things like that was happening in the city, and that came with I think the election, so Obama going for presidency, that started a bunch of the murals in Rhino, in the Rhino art district. Santa Fe had already had like its identity, but as far as me being inspired from the local landscape, it was definitely like going to East High School and then having like Rhino just happening like right next to me, and going there like when I was a teenager, throwing parties there when I was a teenager. Um, and then I moved to Boulder to pursue uni. I went to TU Boulder and I studied international affairs. And I studied international affairs. I was always creative in like my teenage years. Like I was part of a rap group. We were like performing, doing like all this stuff, opening for like bigger acts like Kid Ink and like rappers at the time. But visual, like I thought I would always go into visual arts, but I was not there yet. Like I wasn't there yet. So I went to CU and I studied international affairs, though I wanted to study the arts because half of my family is like politicians. My uncle throughout college was like the ambassador to the UN for the
Oh,
Congo.
wow.
So like half of my family, like on my dad's side, are all like politics, this and that. And I was like, all right, this is what I have to study. This is kind of like in my DNA too.
Yeah.
Um, so then study international affairs, and then my sophomore year it was like Halloween, and I wanted to dress up like as somebody, and I decided to dress up as Picasso. And then the next day I did, I think, Basquiat or something like that. And for each day I created like a little like art, like little like canvas,
Oh, I love
to
that.
carry to carry around in my costume. And then it just felt so natural. I was like, well, I'm not any of these characters. I'm actually just being myself right now.
Yeah.
And from there, I started just kind of developing more visuals, like small canvases at first. And then I actually ended up studying abroad in Brussels, back home for a year. And
Cool.
I was like going through a lot of stuff. Like my dad was like passing away and stuff like that. But it was crazy because that's when I really started just like going, like, I'm just painting every day now. And I was like out on the streets of Brussels where like I picked up like like a stroller you push kids in. Like I had one of those strollers and I had like my art canvases on there, and I would just like walk around neighborhoods and then like put my art everywhere and then just stand there and like put some music or something and just like stand there. People thought it was like performative art and like installation stuff. So that's really got like I was just in the street like with my art, and that was like my street art. Like I wasn't like painting on walls yet, but I was out in the street with my canvases and my work, and so I just wanted to be out. So
Were you
then
just like hanging them up like out in
yeah,
public and like just
yeah,
displaying them basically and just being there with them? Cool.
exactly. I would
That's
be
dope.
like, I would just find a cool place, like what, like I will. So Brussels is like really cool town, but it's like all this a vertical town, like all the buildings are vertical. But I
Mhm.
would find like a cool nook, like in one of these vertical on a cool block or neighborhood, and I would just like install my art and make it look like really cool, kind of like just like it's just like a parlay of art, and I
I
would
love
like
that. I love that you're taking the like canvas and taking the like the smaller based art and like
yeah.
actually just taking it out to the streets. And that's like a nice merge. So did that basically inspire you to want to start doing like muralism? Were you like, I want to paint on a wall?
Yeah, well, I started selling art like to people on the street like that, and then what ended up happening is I ended up like just drawing more, and then I was really inspired being back in Brussels, just seeing like, man, this is like while I'm selling the art, I'm looking at all the art on the walls and I'm admiring it. And I was actually at the time, I was just cataloging all the street art I was seeing in Europe. Like I was just everything, like Spain, Barcelona. I would just go everywhere with no money and just like take pictures of all the street art. And I think that that kind of like how I started was really just like just soaking it in, like soaking it in from Brussels, soaking it in from Barcelona, soaking it in from here in Denver, soaking it in, and just it just was like, man, this is what I gotta do. This is like I can't wait to start because I'm ready now because I have my education. So and also like just people I look up to like Keith Haring and Basquiat. That's like that was their start too. So when I was like going into like, man, who am I gonna be? I had to like say I'm here. And to say that I'm here is kind of like what started graffiti and writing is like people I feel like nameless. I feel like I don't have a voice. I don't how are people gonna know about me? Like I'm not a ad agency. I don't have marketing. I don't have billboards. I don't have and for me, so the statement just became it was like natural. Like I have to go to the streets. I have to let people know that I'm here, like I exist. So I started like painting in the streets from then on. And what I started painting really was like I had a character. It's called a mort, Mort, and the mort is I don't know if you can, I have a tattoo of it. This is like the mort.
Yeah, I saw it on your website. Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that mean something in another language, right? Isn't mort, is that, or did you just name it?
So mort means a few things. In French, like mort is like dead,
Dead,
right?
yeah.
And
Mhm.
and you could say that mort like as far as like Latin, it's like mortal, like it's like a root word for like all these uh like death, basically, like death, not death, but the fragility of life. I think for me,
Yeah, it's like
uh,
ephemeral, right? Like it can end at any moment.
yeah. But then in college, my friends we used to just call people morts. We used to just be like, "Oh man, look at that mort!" Like just
I
like
love that.
somebody, like I don't know, somebody's like in a on with riding walking around Boulder with like an umbrella and it's not raining and it's not even that sunny or something. Like
It
that's
is
a
a
mort.
mort. Yeah.
Yeah, and like like just characters, like people were doing like, ah man, that's a character.
I love
So
it.
so I started making the more to be able to just make social commentary about different things. Like because I can put the more in a in our world and maybe talk about our world in a way where it's like I could just talk about the issue because the more is there, like, they all look the same. It has nothing to do with actual characteristics of the more. It has to do with what's going on in and around the more. So that was like something I was like, oh, I can. And what I started doing is like, man, I like the world needs like more joy. So I started painting them like dancing, like a group of them like dancing, and then you know doing different things. Like I had like a Banksy. I was in Paris and I painted a kind of like a faux Banksy more where it's like the balloon, like the girl with the balloon, but
Mhm.
it's like a little kid more with the hat with the little spin things on the hat, like a
Yeah.
little kid hat, just like with the balloon, like and just doing stuff like that. And then I transitioned into actually this is kind of relevant to right now. Uh, my like so and then so another piece that was really important at the start of the March series that really was like why the social commentary thing was important was like I did a Thanksgiving one where I did it was at the Dona Larita Gallery in Louisville when it was still open in 2017 or 2016, and the piece was like on a pretty big wall, but the piece was depicting native morts. So it's like I had these morts kind of dressed in kind of traditional Native American with the feathers, and they're on land, and they had their leader with a binocular looking out to sea, and they had like all these like all the kid native. They put all the kids first, so all the kids were out kind of by the seashore holding like flowers because they saw that there's boats and like for some foreigners approaching, and the foreigners were the patriots, right? So then you look over and you see this big like kind of like I made it like a tourist, not a tourist boat, but what are those boats that travel around the world? Cruise
Cruise
boat.
ship? A cruise ship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made it like a cruise ship, and I called
Ah,
it like the Mayflower Express.
yeah.
And then we had like these little boats coming off the cruise ships. But if you looked on the boat, you had like some of the patriots with like guns and like, raising their flag and like things of that nature. And it was just interesting. Like I feel like when I started doing work like that, I was like, all right, I'm making commentary about like the world now. And that's like that feels kind of like more important. And then that transitioned into like moving away from just doing morts because I wanted to keep the morts kind of like graffiti because that's like stuff that I paint in the streets illegally a lot of times. So I was like, I can't like publicly just always like associate myself with it, even though people
Totally.
know. But I still do them, but I won't even post them anymore. Like if I do more, it's in the street. I'll just do it and like won't post it. But that transitioned to my first commission work, and that was at the Donna Laurier Gallery. But this was like Main Street, Louisville. So this piece, it was actually for her daughter who was going through brain cancer, and it's March 4th tomorrow, actually her anniversary to when she passed away. But the piece we worked on together was uh, just a piece about her and her life and her hope. And she was facing brain cancer at the time. So we wanted to talk about like her persevering through that and her finding imagery that kind of resolved with her and like inspired her to like, you know, keep fighting and things of that nature. So that kind of introduced like this whole like shattered sky piece into my like street art thing. So the shattered sky just represents like broken realities, like like you know, like for her, like you know, she was diagnosed with brain cancer. She just had graduated from high school.
Wow.
Like you're like what you piece together as what the world, your world is. You're like it's all shattered. Like you know, from there. But then from there, it other things can grow. Like you can make it what you want. And so it's kind of moved along from that commission to just continuing to do canvas work. And then I actually ended up moving or going to Europe for 3 months. And I started focusing back on canvas and painting because it gets really cold half the year. And it's just, I think it's the street art for me has been a good outlet because it allows me to go directly to people like and have a message that impacts communities directly and can touch on communal issues. Like for the Streetwise project, I had three characters um kind of like sleeping, like you know, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
Yeah,
it's
I can pull
Yes,
it
let's
up right
pull it
now.
up so we
Yeah.
can, And that's part of a series, right? It's like the Black Love Bodies series. Like you have multiple works that are kind of
right,
reminiscent of a
right,
similar theme, right?
right. So exactly. So when I come back from Europe, this is like right before quarantine. This is right before COVID hit. I come
Okay.
back in February 2020. And this is when you see, you know, the proliferation of police killings, and
Mhm.
you have the start of the Black Lives Matter movement. You have all of these things happening socially and culturally within the Black community and within all communities around Blackness, around the treatment of Black men and Black women in American society and around the world today. Really, it didn't stop at America. It actually transferred. It went across all borders. Really, at this point, and at that point, I was like, you know, I've been painting. That's great, and you know, painting. I love painting canvas, but like, you can't really talk about issues to a broad range of people if you're not in the streets as an artist. So for me, it was important for me to come back to the street art because I wasn't even planning on doing a lot of street art in 2020. And but then I felt inspired from like all the issues that was going on and the fact that there was no outlets for people at the time because everybody was quarantined for people to talk about stuff or for ideas to get out. And then so having the opportunities that were presented to me, I applied for, you know, a bunch of mural festivals with a bunch of ideas, and all the ideas center around this idea of me creating Black love bodies, and the whole kind of ethos behind that is to like I feel as a Black man and as an artist that the Black body has been over sexualized, over violenced, over terrorized, you know,
Mhm.
within media, within movies, within literature. And for me, I think, and also a lot of my contemporary Black artists, I think that what we're trying to do is change that narrative and be able to put our voice into the depiction of ourselves. So for me, the Black love bodies were art and are, you know, kind of like a living body of work that is really based around, you know, people seeing it, people seeing the bodies, people being able to interact with them, take pictures of them, stand next to them, and also just like I want to say feel them and not be like how I want to say this, and it being from like an authentic place. Like I'm not like, if you look at this mural here, there's like three sleeping like monuments or three
Mhm.
sleeping male bodies. But the thing about having them sleeping, and especially in this array, like in fauna and nature and around beauty, is because I've never seen that. But like, when I go back home or to, and a lot of this is like, some of this, the fauna is based on fauna that I find back in the Congo.
Mhm.
Like, we're not violent people. We're not like, even here in the neighborhoods like that I live in, like, Five Points, Denver, like we're like, it's not, I don't see what they're saying about us in media and us in the movies. I don't see that. So I want to like take it and just flip the narrative completely on its head and say, like, nah, I'm gonna put three black males kind of figures just sleeping here. Because in sleep, you're the most vulnerable, and in sleep, you're most at peace. And also, it's like almost like how I feel like I just want to be. Like, I want to be let, I want to be allowed to just be. And I
Yeah.
think that these three characters represent that as a black male. Like, you just want to be at peace and be able to just be at your own peace and like live your life and not have to like deal with repercussions of being born a certain color. So
Yeah. I love it. It's just a claiming of self, a claiming of your people. I mean, just, authentically expressing how you feel you deserve to be expressed. And that's important work for sure. And I love it.
right.
I love the mix with the botanical and you said that some of the nature stuff is like from the Congo. Is
Yeah.
that what you
So
said?
so I paint these a lot too. A lot of my work is just symbology, but these are like the green and the black and white kind of like leaf looking
Uh-huh.
things. Those are called Congos. They're
Yeah.
called Congos, and it's like a Congo leaf. And that's just like, for me, that's just like an identity thing. Like, I just want to put like even like, just, I mean, it's not just because it's called the Congo that I'm gonna put that in there, but it's like, it's actually, you find that in the Congo as well. And it's like, it just works with my aesthetic vision and style. I just want to remain authentic to myself too as I create these things too.
I love it. Let's bring up Inez the other mural that was a part of the Black Love Mural Festival, I think, the one on the right.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was cool. So that was in was that Rob the Museum and Art IRL did that, right?
Yes.
And that was
Correct.
out in Civic Center Park, and they basically set up a space for Black artists to just crush it and do a bunch of dope murals.
Right, right, right. And this was early in the mural season of 2020. So
Mhm.
this was kind of like our first opportunities as artists to kind of like really put something that was downtown Denver as well. So to do something that people would interact with right away. And this was actually, I want to say this might have been the first like Black love body. And like, because and you see like the heart, like you see like it's almost like this connection, like, and that's at the heart of it, because at this point, like, this is not October I was doing like streetwise, and this is like in the summer when this is like our first go. So I was feeling a lot of angst, and you see that, I feel like, in the piece, like the angst I was feeling was like the
Yeah.
frustration. We're like doing protest, like, marching the streets during this time, like, and it was that, like, we're marching the streets during this time, and I wanted to like capture that, like that energy, like we're fighting for something, no matter what, we're gonna fight for it. And you have like the broken heart, meaning, how we feel as a people from these events happening, how we feel. We just feel like brokenhearted from all this, kind of struggle and the events and actual loss of life. And then you have like this connection within the body, because that's how I feel like we feel as a Black people. We feel kind of disconnected and broken, and we don't know how to necessarily deal. But the whole thing is that it's also like striving, like it's also like this thing that's like striving up. It's almost like actually putting itself back together. And
Mhm.
what was really cool about this is like the fire, there's like a foot that's closed off, or it's like a foot, and then you see the inside of the foot, like the bone marrow, and then there's like plants growing out of it. And that to me represents like the soul, like the beauty of like the internal soul that we all share. Like the inside of us, we all bleed red, and we all have the like potential to like grow our own beautiful garden within ourselves. And but that is like also like the plant is on fire, representing like the fire that burns inside of us, like trying to, because of this, because of um like the compassion, I think fire to me kind of represents compassion in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
then you have like the fatigue like hand to the left corner, like the hand that's kind of like fatigued down on the grass, like tired. You know, it's been 400 years of like people struggling to, you know, for the world to be equal and longer even, but at least for Black people. But yeah, so this piece was really like kind of like the first iteration, and you kind of see the more like anxiety inside of this piece than in the Streetwise piece.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's also just really reflective. I feel like in general, your style, there's this really organic balance of like the beautiful and the ethereal and the kind of light in a way and the
Yeah,
colors, and it's like folkloric, but then you juxtapose it with like honestly the grotesque, you know,
right,
and I love it.
definitely.
Like, yeah. And I mean, I see that so much in this piece as well. And especially with those plants coming out of, you know, that could also be such a testament to like, you know, the damage and the breakdown, but there's always growth in that as well. And there's like a beauty that can come out of all of that challenge. Like, I love all
Yeah,
of the elements in this piece. It's great.
yeah. Do you guys have the mural I did for Crush Walls by chance?
Is that the one with the zebra?
Yeah.
No, but we
So
can just let's Google it and pull it up.
if you go to Instagram, or
Yeah, we have
actually
your
it's
Instagram
on
pulled
my
up.
website. If you go to musebumba.com
Yeah, let's pull that up.
and go to street art, all right, you can go down. So I wonder if I have more pictures. Yeah. So here, this is like, and I think you hit it like on the head, like kind of like the folkloric stuff. Like I think my paintings, a lot of my work is just like narratives. Like it's like there's stories in them, even though that I don't know 'em. A lot of times like freehand stuff. Like this one was like I didn't have a pre-proposal for this one.
Oh yeah, so you just like went for it on the wall.
I just went for it. The zebra just happened. It was like 2 in the morning. I was like, I need to. This is what it feels like has to be here. So the zebra happened from 2 to 6 in the morning, the day before it was finished. So
Cool.
like, if you can keep going down. So here you have like kind of like a landscape, and it's and street art is really weird too because you have to work with different walls. Like it's not like I have like a perfect square. So you have to like make things work and kind of be able to adapt. And this was right before. I want to say this one was right before Streetwise or right after Streetwise.
Is this
But
like a
this was
patio of a like what is this space? Is it a patio of a
yeah. So Crush Luster Pearl is the restaurant,
cool,
and it's in Rhino Art District.
cool.
And here I have kind of like this like the grotesque kind of like disconnected body,
Yeah.
um the black body, and I kind of took that motif from Matisse and Keith Haring,
Mhm.
I want to say, but I took it, you know, great artist still, shout out Picasso. I took it, but what I wanted to do was represent how we feel. Like we don't feel connected, we don't feel like the happy jubilant Keith Haring characters, you
Yeah.
know.
There's
And
dancing and prancing.
yeah, yeah. And I wanted to take like the Matisse and like flip it, you know, and make it like drowning, you know, like you know, because honestly, we representation in art is like lacking. I think we're like one of the first generation of Black artists that's really gonna be kind of like making works now, and that's gonna be lasting for the next 50 years. And here you kind of have the same motifs that I have in both that Streetwise piece and the other love bodies. And you have like this like, and it's really interesting. I started having them hold like on the far left side you have like a hand holding a thunderbolt, and you have the sun rising. You have you have multiple women, like, so you have, so this is will be a core body right here in the middle of this, the piece next to the sword. You have the hand striving for the sword. If you go to the left side or the right side of the mural, you have the body on the floor with the bird taking his heart. And that's just the world.
Yeah.
That to me, that's like, it's like things can happen. Like Breonna Taylor can be killed, you know, in the manner that she was, and because of technicality, it's okay. We're,
Oh,
you know, we're just gonna move on, but it's okay. And this is like this dog, like in the jungle, like, you know, you have like nature, you have like lions eating like gazelles, and like, you know, you have this like constant kind of like battle, and this is like what it is. But then you also have like the juxtaposition where this one is actually holding a flower, you know,
is
or
this part of the, is this the shattered sky you were mentioning? Is that
yeah,
this visual here?
yeah, so then
Okay.
this piece, I was basically trying to bring that element also back into it as well, like the shadow sky broken reality piece,
Mhm.
you know. And then because I want like my work, I want it, if you put it like all together, I want it to be like cohesive, like seamless, like my street art stuff, especially like the series and stuff. So this kind of fell in between that. And the zebra was interesting because it's like the zebra, if you go down to the zebra, it's like it's like pushing off, it's like pushing forward, pushing out, and that was about just visually like you create your own, like create your own reality, like this is what's going on, but there's so much you can still fight for and strive for, you know. And that, like horses and zebras and things, like I think that's a strive, you know, like I'm striving for something. I think it
Yeah.
gives that kind of feeling to me at least.
I
So I
love
want,
zebras.
yeah,
Zebras are my favorite animals, so right on.
I'm like black and white, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it was important for me to get something that represented like the fact that there one doesn't exist without the other, you know. And a zebra is a good example or symbol of that. Like black and white doesn't exist without the other, but we can exist in beautiful harmony. Like there's no reason not to. We see it in
Absolutely.
nature, you know.
Yeah. I love that. I also love like whenever you talk about these artists that have inspired you, does that obviously probably come from like your mother having, you know, like being so deeply ingrained in like the, you know, the actual like the mainstream art world or however you want to describe it. Because
Yeah,
yeah, you talk
well,
about Keith Haring, you talk about Basquiat, like
man,
it's
there's
just
so many more. Otto Mueller. There's like so many unknown people. Sean
right,
Brussels,
yeah,
man. There's like Rene Magritte. Like there's so many. I
yeah,
mean, he's
oh
famous
yeah,
now, but
oh, yeah,
I think, man, like I think anything you do, like even if I was a professional basketball player, there's no way I can't name Kobe Bryant. I can't name Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan.
yeah,
So like for me, it's just like you gotta respect the trade. And there's a lot of people that don't respect this world, this art world, and they don't understand it. And maybe like I feel privileged in a sense because I grew up in it.
yeah.
So maybe I have a different understanding of how it works. But like, man, like I just these people are inspiring. They inspired our whole world of design and what we think is, you know, cool or aesthetic. And I think
That all
I want
stems
to
from
fall
that.
into that lineage. So it's like I gotta pay respect and I gotta study them because like they're probably up there, you know, like man, this kid is, you know, I want to be on their good terms, on their good side. So I just definitely want to do my research and like be inspired in the right way.
Yeah, I didn't, and to clarify, I did not mean like mainstream art world in a bad way. I was an art history major at CU,
Yeah.
so like yeah, mad respect to all those artists, and they really did lay the ground for so much that's happening today. And no one really knows that unless they did study art or art history. You know, like
Right.
I'll say names, I'll say those names, I'll say Matisse, I'll say, I mean, obviously everyone knows Picasso, but I'll just say
Right.
certain artists that I assume that are kind of in that main canon, like because I studied it or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, you know, so many other people are just like, oh, who? And then I'll show them an image and they'll be like, oh yeah, no, I know that. And I'm like, it's like you know it visually, but you don't always know all the other stuff about it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
There's so much, man. Like Phil Guston is a big inspiration of mine as well. Like there's a lot of Congolese painters too, like the
Yeah.
Lumbashi school. Pili Pili is a big one. Pili Pili is a huge inspiration of mine. Cause like we
How do you
had
spell
like
that? I want to look that up. How do you spell
Pili
that?
Pili is it's actually it means hot sauce in English, but it's Pili
Uh-huh.
space Pili.
Cool, cool.
Uh yeah, I just think it's important, and I in my practice that's how I get inspired by, you know, looking up other artists and even like contemporary people like Eddie Martinez. I feel like he's like dad out here right now. He's like everybody's dad, kind of.
Art dad.
Yeah, Eddie Martinez. You know, like people like Robert Nava. He's doing some really cool stuff right now. Derek Adams doing some really cool stuff around Black identity as well. Like, man, yeah, it's pretty cool what's going on. And Jordan Castile, because she was local at one point, she was from Denver. So just like it's really cool, man. I think art is finally, or I don't know, it feels like the art world is like turning around and being like, oh, we have to now give credit to Black artists and we have to include them in our inclusion and stuff. But it's actually something that's had to happen. So it's good that it's actually happening, regardless of like what some people's intentions may be around it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with that. That is great. Wow, yeah, that was an awesome conversation. You basically answered any question I had just like as you were talking, and I was like, tight. Like,
Oh,
um,
cool.
yeah, I think so. You said when you studied abroad in Brussels, but then did
Yeah.
you go when you were saying you were back there right before quarantine? Was that or did you go back again?
No, that was so I studied abroad in 2015.
Okay,
I went back, so I've been working as a full-time artist for the past 2 years now.
cool.
And then so I went back to Europe to do like network and just like to create because I need to like a change of scenery.
Mhm.
And I want to say it was like last October or last September. What's the month? Like late August, and then into like February type of 2020.
Cool. Did you do any commissioned work out there or any
Yeah,
murals?
I
Or did
sold
you
I
just
sold
kind of
some paintings to some collectors in Geneva. I was supposed to do a show in Geneva actually in 2020, but then COVID happened.
yeah.
Um, I did some street art out there in Paris specifically. Not commissioned street art. I went rogue. But that's what it was about. I rented out like a few Airbnbs. I stayed besides Brussels, I was in Malta for a month as well as the island, like
Beautiful.
Mediterranean. And I was like no phone, nothing, like for a month. I just need to unplug
That sounds
everything.
great.
And I just like I didn't even create anything for a month. I was just sitting there looking at the beach from our from our Airbnb.
Yeah.
Also made going around and stuff like that. But and then go into Paris, started some street art, and then go back to Brussels, did the studio thing. I find a good rhythm in like working like that, and like just switching stuff up, going different, making myself uncomfortable. Because when I was in the street doing the stuff in Paris, I was scared. I was like, man, what if I get caught here? Like, I don't know what the laws are. But then it's like you go through that and then you feel like a superhero when you go back into your studio because you've just been, out in the
Out
streets
there. Yeah.
painting,
It's super
like,
interesting that like you're basically constantly incorporating elements and travel and change of scenery, which keeps, I guess it keeps the juices flowing in some sense. Like sometimes being stuck at like sometimes you get into phases where you're just stuck in the studio and you can be there for like a whole week straight and you're just making this and you're so inspired, but then you feel so burnt out and you're like, I don't know what to make anymore. Like you just feel lost. And I just feel like your flow and your way of just bearing things stops
yeah,
you from having that pause. And it's also super interesting that you're combining like some of your street art is commissioned and some of it you were just there like for the thrill of it and you're doing
I
it for
love it.
yourself, which is basically how street art started. I mean, when I
yeah,
was 13 and 12, I had all of my friends like doing graffiti on the walls and like some of them it wasn't even artistic, it was just because they felt like they were cool by doing that. But like, you know what I mean, like that piece where street art started and how now it's turned into such a requested thing.
right, right,
So it's super interesting how like you still combine both of those elements into it.
I love
yeah.
that. Does that inform your like creative process differently in any way? Like say you're going rogue and you're going out in the streets versus like working with a mural festival or with an organization. I mean, obviously with that one for Crush Walls, you said that was not necessarily very pre-planned and you just kind of went with a flow onto a
Yeah.
wall. Is that more how it is when you go rogue, or do you sit there and do you think about it,
Oof,
or how does that happen?
man, I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest. Like, I kind of go both ways. I feel like the streets is weird because like it feels like in the streets you gotta be a little more neat
Yeah.
if you want to be like like um you can't like on canvas I could just free flow all day, but like it's always felt weird to me. It's felt like something I wanted to do, but like also like carrying around a bunch of spray paint is annoying like on the backpack.
Yeah.
So like when you're so but I like to pre-plan my stuff in the streets more, like the preparation, because like I think that's something that's like once you like start doing street art, that's the preparation becomes key. Like people that do wheat pasting, I like the Obey Shepherd Ferry, like how he started, like the preparation. He did a documentary, but the preparation that goes into it, like you have to prepare your material, your wheat paste, your paint. You have to know what you're gonna do because you have to be
You
quick.
gotta be quick. That is not legal, right? So you just gotta like slap it up,
Yeah,
paint, just roll
I've
it.
gotten some tickets. I've been in trouble for sure. I've
Yeah.
already, so like now it's like I want to be, if I'm gonna do something, I gotta be like in and out. So like, I'm not sitting there for an hour or 2 hours. I'm sitting
Yeah,
there for
like
like
thinking about it.
20, 30 minutes tops and then
I
moving
love
on.
that. I bet that adrenaline is just so good. You're like out there and just like, I gotta get this up and then I gotta
It's
go.
honestly, it's kind of, yeah, it is. The adrenaline is crazy for sure.
I love it.
Also, I don't want to get in trouble because I'm not a citizen of the States yet. So
Oh,
like, I don't want like, like my other tickets, thank God I had a good like person taking care of my case and they were just like, all right, just do some community service.
yeah.
But if I were to get like a hard like charge or something over some property damage, like that would ruin my chances of getting citizenship. And I'm pretty close to getting it. So
Oh yeah.
but you might still see me on the streets.
Nice.
I might still do it anyway.
Cool. Well, I feel like I don't really have any more questions aside from just like, what is your, I mean, we're in a new year now, right? Like shit is weird in this world. Kind of what is 2021 looking like for you? Or do you have any cool, exciting projects on the horizon?
Yeah, actually a lot of cool stuff just started. I got a collaboration with Urban Outfitters right now.
Oh,
They're
cool.
selling a love tote bag that I designed, and all the proceeds are going to Together, which is a homeless shelter for teens in the Front Range area, and they've helped over 10,000 kids in the past 10 years. So got the collaboration with Urban Outfitters. I'm also showing currently right now at the Trident in Boulder.
Oh, in
Which is
Boulder. Yeah, I love Trident.
yeah, so
Cool.
bookseller and cafe, but they also have in their cafe like a rotating walls. And last month they had Gunther Gerzo, who was a part of the Mexican Modernist show at the Dam, and that
Oh,
was like
yeah,
an
yeah.
authorized like show by his estate. So I'm following them, and I have a show there. And a lot of the show is kind of informed a little bit by Gunther Gerzo because I spent a lot of time in the Trident, and seeing his work on paper kind of like made me want to work more on paper and do like more cutouts and things of that nature. So there's a lot of like I haven't worked on paper since 2016. So this is like works on paper. I worked on cutouts, did some illustrations and some paintings. It's called Save Man. And it's
Cool.
up until April 1st at the Trident. That's gonna be really cool. And then later this year I wanted to kind of minimize how spread I spread myself because last year was crazy, and now I'm trying to do this long term, so I gotta like ease up on my body and my spirit too. But I'm doing a show at Understudy in November, and that's gonna be like a full installation, paintings, type work. I don't know if you've ever been to Understudy, but it's
I
downtown
haven't.
Denver, and it's like this little nook. It's a really special space. I'm excited for that. It's called Stories Out of a Daydream, where I'm gonna be kind of exploring different things. I'm still writing the story, but
Yeah, yeah. It's a work in progress. Is that
yeah, I
going to be
think
more of a solo show or does that have other artists involved as
that's a
well?
solo show. That's gonna be a
Okay,
solo
cool.
exhibit all the whole month of November.
And you said it's going to be like installation and painting a bunch of different mediums?
Yeah, it's gonna be
Awesome.
like everything, like video, like everything I
Wow,
could think of
cool.
is gonna be that.
That's great. I love that immersive interactivity. Like that's going to be
Yeah,
cool. I'm definitely
and
gonna check it
besides that, just like I'm working with the Clayton Hotel down in Cherry Creek, and hopefully we can roll out some cool projects. My partner and I, Cyan Stone Smith, we started Bazaar Art Market
Yeah,
last year,
about that.
showcasing local artists, and we hope to continue those markets actually coming up next month, April. Yeah, and they're going to be hosted at the Denver Central Market as well as the Trident in Boulder, and
Cool.
hopefully we can get some more partners alongside that too.
Very cool. And it's kind of like an in-person like shopping exhibiting
Yeah,
experience,
it's
right?
an
It's
open
all
air
okay.
marketplace. We have DJs. We usually have DJs
Very
live
cool.
music, and then we have around 8 to 16 artists given the venue. And it's artists and artisans. So you'll have like people with canvases, people with prints, but also people with like CBD products or like
Yeah.
a whole bunch of array of different stuff. We kind of it's just like we've had so many different stuff sold that it's pretty cool.
Well, that's the best part is that like cross pollination and that bleeding over between, the commercial and the art and all the stuff. Like it's really cool to see what people are making and how creativity really doesn't necessarily need to be like reserved just for that visual art realm, even though it is obviously that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. There's a lot of things going on. too.
Cool. Sounds like an exciting year. We're excited to see what you do.
Yo, me too. Me too. This year is gonna be crazy. I think this year is gonna be like as far as, because I don't have a lot of work out, so I think this year is gonna be a good year for me to get my work out and get more paintings out in the world and more work. Hopefully, I get a bunch of street art out too. And if I don't get commissioned, you're definitely gonna see me in the streets.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Well, I'm excited about that. I mean, like we were saying, we were geeking out about your art before we were talking, and now I'm still geeking out about it. I think you're super inspiring, and like just like the current climate and how you're stepping into it is dope.
Yeah.
Like it's really great. So
So
I can't
much.
wait to see what else you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And I'm
guys, do you have
definitely
anything?
excited to go check out the show at Understudy when it comes out in
Yeah.
November. I will be the first person through that door.
Same, I'm writing it down so I remember.
I don't go to Denver often, but if I do, it's usually just to see art. So
Where are you based out of?
well, I'm in Longmont, so I'm really not
Okay,
even
yeah.
that far. I'm just
That's
not
a long
the best,
trip.
I'm not the best driver, so
Yeah.
try to not go long with this.
It can be hard to get out there in general. Like I live in Denver, and sometimes I'm like, why am I not doing more? Like it's
Right.
just this current climate. It's so hard, like to
Right.
do things. I feel like, but
That's so
I don't
true.
know. I feel like this is a good year for getting out of our shells again. So hopefully,
Yeah.
yep. Cool. Thank you so much for meeting with us. This was dope. This
Yeah,
was
thank you.
Yeah,
This
it was
was
my
awesome.
pleasure.
It was great to hear about you, your story, your art, and everything. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it was my pleasure. Thank y'all so much.
Yeah, of course. All right.
All right.
Bye,
Ciao,
guys.
ciao. Yeah, see ya.